Hello and welcome back. You're looking at Jimmy Stu, Tim Stützle, and mark my words, Stützle will be a second-round pick in next year's fantasy drafts, if not a first-round pick with the way he's playing right now. I've mentioned at various points that I was amazed to learn that he was the fourth highest-rated player on the Data Draft Player Hub with hits and blocks, but I'm amazed no more. He had an incredible week, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points in 4 games, also had 2 power play points and 17 shots, and his teammate Brady Tkachuk also went off, 4 goals, 4 assists, 17 shots, and 16 hits in 4 games. And don't look now, but the Sens are 5 points out of a wild card spot with games in hand. But both Stützle and Tkachuk are owned up, so the fantasy trade deadline is this Wednesday. If you want to go and trade for him right now, you can do that, but that's not why you're here. You're here to find the 5 hottest players in the league right now below 50% ownership, and that's what we'll cover. 3 forwards, 2 D, and a goalie, and then a special bonus at the end. And as always, let's just jump right into the top forwards from last week, and we will start with a guy I highlighted on Thursday with a YouTube short, fantasy file, and an Instagram reel, and that is Robby Fabbri. When I did the fantasy file on Thursday, he was 3% owned, now 13%, which is a huge jump, but still very ownable. Over the past week, 4 games, 9 points, 5 on the power play, 3 goals, 6 assists. On the year, again, he missed some time, 19 games, 15 points, 7 power play points, and 3 game winners. So if you're in a points league that weights those a little heavier, definitely something to consider. If you look at his player hub, he's now a 73, and doing that mainly on the back of his power play production, 95th percentile on the power play, 91st in goal production, about 1.5 hits per game on top of that. The shot volume is a little bit low, and that is the one concerning thing here, and the only risk is he's at a 26.9% shooting percentage right now and low shot volume on top of that, so that could potentially dry up goal wise. But as long as he's going to keep getting rolled out on the power play, if you look at his hub, these are all power play points, 1 1 2 2. I mean, this is incredible to see this kind of production. This is basically what Dominik Kubalik was doing earlier in the season, but now Fabbri comes in and he gets that spot. Currently, he's playing second line with Kopp and Rasmussen, power play 1 with Larkin, Bertuzzi, Perron, and Seider. Perron has started to kind of come back into form on the power play, so that does help Fabbri because he's the recipient of those passes from Perron. Detroit this week has 3 games, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, all the heavier nights. They have Washington, the Rangers, and Tampa, so some difficult opponents. But Detroit is only 3 points out of a wild card spot with 4 games in hand on both the Islanders and the Panthers, and then 3 games at hand on Washington, and that is a game that they're going to have to win. So these are meaningful games. Detroit is 7-3 in their last 10 games, 3.3 goals for per game. So things are trending in the right direction for the entire team. And this is one of the reasons why Robby Fabbri having an excellent week. And I've been mentioning him a couple of times because he's been a consistent riser on the Data Draft Player Hub. He's now a 73, and I could see that going up from here if he can continue this production. But 9 points in 4 games is impressive to say the least. That brings us to our next forward of the week, and that is Victor Arvidsson, a guy I am sure you're tired of me talking about at this point. Literally talked about him all season, this entire line. I mentioned him in the weekly video yesterday. 23% owned, dual eligible left wing, right wing. 5 points in 3 games, 3 on the power play, 11 shots. So just about 4 shots per game, about 3.6 shots per game. On the season, 15 power play points out of his 39 total. So that's a really nice split there. 6 power play goals, a shorthanded goal, and 2 game winners. So if you're getting extra weighting in your points league for power play goals, shorthanded goals, game winners, this is definitely a guy that you could potentially stream or hold on to for a little while. He's a 71 on the Data Draft Player Hub, mainly because he doesn't hit at all. If he hit or did a little bit more blocks, he would definitely be higher up. So I checked on the no hits and blocks hub, and he's an 87. And most of the players on the no hits and blocks hub go up to 99. So that's relatively high. You can kind of think of that kind of like NHL ratings. So an 87 is nothing to laugh at. Now, he's definitely covering goal production pretty well, but the main factor here is his power play production. And then this line exposure, again, Trevor Moore is now healthy. He's 10% owned. Danault is 30% owned. And now you have Arvidsson at 23% owned. And they've all hovered in that 20 to 30 range in terms of percentage ownership. So they're all usually available for you, even in a 12-team league. You might not be able to get them in a 14-team league or anything higher than that. But there are guys to own from this line if you can't get them. Like I just mentioned, Trevor Moore at 10% would be the guy to go for. And just a quick reminder, you can access all of these player and goalie hubs. I just updated every one of them today in time for the fantasy trade deadline on Wednesday. You can get those for just $3 a month by clicking the Patreon link in the description below. But that brings us to our third forward of the week, and that is Boone Jenner, another guy I've talked about a lot on the channel. 4 games this week, 4 points, a power play point, 14 shots, 8 hits, 5 blocks, and that is right on brand because he covers a little bit of everything. Typically, he's a very complete player, and he's only improved on that as we've made it through the season to this point. He used to be a mid-70s player. Now he's an 83 on the Data Draft Player Hub. The main reasons you'd own him are shot volume, 3.24 shots per game, 96th percentile, 92nd percentile in goal production, and then he still gets almost 2 hits per game and above 1 block per game. The power play production is all right, 79th percentile, but he is PP1, and that is something we will talk about in the next slide. But nonetheless, he's got a really excellent file here. The point per game is a little low, so if you're not in a bangers league, maybe he's a little bit less valuable because he's at 0.7 point per game. But you're still getting excellent shot volume and goal production out of him. So you're getting 2 categories at the bare minimum. If you're in a categories league that has these categories right here, you're getting a lot of coverage across every single category that you're going to need. And he's been one of those streamers that I typically go to on a regular basis if I need a center. I haven't needed a center. I have Dylan Larkin, and he's been on fire, so haven't looked at it too much recently. But 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points in his last 12 games, so it's more than just this weekly performance. So he's been getting it done over the last couple games. And if you look at this log here, this is the shot volume we're talking about. This game against Toronto, a goal, an assist, 9 shots, 5 hits, 2 blocks. He's doing everything. And he can go off like that. As you can see here, he did it again against Arizona. 1-1-1. That's a power play point. 4 shots, 3 hits, a block. So he's one of those very versatile players. 40% owned, so he's probably there for you in 8, 10, and some 12-team leagues. He's available in my 12-team league. So if he is there and you need a center, he's definitely one of the first guys I would look to. And that brings us to the defenseman this week. And we're going to start with Adam Boqvist, a defenseman, 8% owned. I've been mentioning him here and there over the past month and a half or two as he came back from injury. He was a typical 17-goal pace guy over the last 3 seasons. 2 of the 3 seasons that he's played in the league, he's been on pace for 17 goals. And that showed up in the data, and you can kind of see that not necessarily showing up here because he doesn't have the goal production yet, but it started to come this week. So if you see on the season, he's only got 2 goals, but those came this week. So he's starting to put the goal production together. 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points this week, 3 on the power play. Also getting some shots and blocks as well. You can see the blocks kind of racking up here in this column. And then there's just ones all over the place. He's very consistent. 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 power play point. And so you're getting that consistent production as opposed to a guy who goes cold for 3 or 4 games and then pops off for like 2 goals and 3 assists, which is good to see. Daily Faceoff has him on the 3rd pair, but power play 1. Not sure what the reasoning is there. Maybe he's not quite as solid in his own end, but his plus minus is decent, and he does score on the power play. So I'm not sure how that works because power play goals obviously don't count for plus minus. But he also, in addition to this week that he put up this week, he's got 9 points in his last 9 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 5 power play points in that span. And this is another one of those files of a guy, quarterback power play quarterback defenseman that you can access now, only 8% owned. And one of those power play quarterbacks on a bad team, him, Matheson, Valimaki right now, JJ Moser if Valimaki isn't going to be the guy. There's some guys all around the league that are going to be elevated in their roles, especially after the trade deadline when some of these high-priced guys like Chychrun move out. So Boqvist is another option that you could potentially ride for the later stretch of the season into the fantasy playoffs because he's starting to heat up right now as well. Those 2 goals are just the tip of the iceberg for Boqvist. Now, our next defenseman, I've mentioned him before. I'll mention him again. Sam Girard, 22% owned, 5 assists in 4 games this week, 1 power play point, 7 hits, and 8 blocks. So he's one of those rare guys who's a blocks defenseman, not necessarily a hits guy, though he did put up almost 2 hits per game this week. And he typically, if you look at his player hub, this is the blocks coverage. You're getting 86th percentile, not a lot of hits, but almost 1 hit per game. But you're getting some power play exposure now, especially with Cale Makar out. We'll come back to that. And you're getting the assist coverage because he plays with elite players, especially on that power play unit. Just under half a point per game. Shot volume isn't great, but it's, he's getting more of an opportunity now, so that could potentially increase. Now, Makar is out again after getting another hit to the head, and that could be another concussion. So the Avs will probably try to play it safe with their most important player, and that means more ice time for 3 defensemen. Taves, who's 92% owned, Bowen Byram, who's 61% owned, and I just featured in a YouTube short and an Instagram reel today. And then there's Sam Girard at 22% owned. So of the bunch, Girard is the most available, and he's not seeing that much less ice time than the two of them. Byram and Girard both play on PP2. Taves is getting the PP1 time right now. So you're getting blocks, you're getting assists, some power play points, and a couple hits every now and then. The hits have started to pick up lately a little bit, at least in the past week. But an excellent week for Sam Girard, although it is a bit assist heavy. Look at this time on ice, 23 minutes a game. And that's mainly because, Makar was in for some of these games. So now with him out, he's not going to see any less ice time. So this is an excellent file to get exposure to. And as I've mentioned a number of times already, Colorado has one of the best off-night schedules for your fantasy playoffs from week 22 all the way to week 26. So this could be a potential longer-term hold. Same thing with Byram, same thing with Taves. Any of these guys are potentially good holds. The only hold that I'm a little bit worried about is Makar with the injury risk. They might just shut him down until right before the playoffs just to be safe. But they also might need to get into the playoffs, so that's something to monitor as we get closer to the end of the season. But nonetheless, Sam Girard, an excellent week. And again, he's only 22% owned, so you can probably run to the wire and pick him up if you need a defenseman. That brings us to our goaltender of the week, and it is Connor Ingram. So this is an interesting file because it's a horrible team, but a great goaltender. So two wins, 0.68 goals against, 981 save percentage, and a shutout. That was a 47 save shutout. That's impressive. No matter what, he's getting shelled every game because it is a poor defensive team. And you can see that in the record, 5-11-4. But the numbers are not bad, 3.16 goals against and a 912 save percentage with a shutout. So the reason why he's got this low goals against here is because he came in relief against LA and basically pitched a 23 save shutout, but he doesn't get credit for it. They lost the game. So he doesn't get the other shutout here, but he basically pitched another shutout on top of that and then comes back with a win against Columbus and a 944 save percentage. But this is what I'm talking about when it comes to the team exposure. 9th percentile. Arizona is 30th in the league in expected goals against, hence that 9th percentile for team exposure. But if you look at this pink bar, this is goals saved above expected, 80th percentile. He's at 6.8 above expected, and that ranks him 19th in the league. Now, if you look at the other goaltender in Arizona, Vejmelka is 10th. So both goaltenders are very skilled. This is similar to Montreal. Both goaltenders are well above expected in terms of what they're stopping, but they're just on a terrible team that's giving up a ton of chances, and you can't rely on them to get you wins, which is what you're seeing here. He doesn't have a lot of win percentile here, not a ton of starts either. But that is something to monitor if Vejmelka gets traded. There's been rumblings that Vejmelka could get moved to maybe Los Angeles, and that would be the only potential playoff team that would maybe need a goaltender heading into the playoffs. If that does happen, Ingram is going to be the starter. I wouldn't necessarily rush out to the wire and grab him because of this team exposure, but if you need a streaming option on a good matchup, as you can see here, he beat Columbus. This Tampa Bay shutout win was against Brian Elliott, but nonetheless, that is still really impressive to shut out the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I would typically start him against less than optimal opponents just to try to favor, towards the win as opposed to getting shelled and losing like what John Gibson does all the time. So this is an excellent week for Connor Ingram, and he is one of those very skilled goaltenders, high save percentage, high goals saved above expected, just on a bad team right now. But it is good for him because he's getting a look. He's getting the exposure right now, and people are starting to take notice. And they're going to take notice after a 47 save shutout. So an excellent week for Connor Ingram. Now we do have a bonus here, and that would be our data draft top risers on the player hub. So what you're seeing here, this is sorted by rating on the data draft player hub with hits and blocks. from top to bottom. Basically cut it off at 60 or 65. But this is the change, how much they've changed in the last week and a half or so. Harvey Pinard has been the number 2 guy. Obviously, we covered Fabbri here today. I covered Harvey Pinard right before they came back from their break. And if you picked him up then, you've been reaping the benefits. He's getting a ton of offensive production, and he's also getting some hits, about 3 hits per game for Harvey Pinard. I covered Bowen Byram in a fantasy file short today, so you can check that out on Instagram and on YouTube. And then we obviously covered Fabbri and a couple of the other guys that are on here. Mike Matheson got a fantasy file short. But one other guy I did want to touch on is Yanni Gourde. He's up 9.5. He's just getting into the range of ownability in a 12-team league, 67 on the hub, 87th percentile in assist coverage. 0.64 point per game is pretty decent. Almost 2 shots per game. I'd like to see that a little bit higher. Not getting a ton of power play production. I believe this is just 1 power play point that he's got. And obviously most players in the league don't play on the power play, so that puts him above half the league at least. 1.5 hits per game is pretty decent for Yanni Gourde. The only issue that I have with Gourde is that Seattle scores by committee, so you never really know who's the guy that's going to pop off. So it is kind of a guessing game, but he is a very skilled player. Typically, I would look at him as a streaming option in a 12-team league. I wouldn't necessarily hold on to him for too long, but he had an excellent last week and a half stretch. Floated by the last game that he played. I believe he had 2 goals and an assist. So he's starting to heat up a little bit, and they're going to need that. They're trying to fight for positioning in the Pacific Division. But that's going to do it for this video. You can obviously scan this QR code and go right to the Data Draft Instagram for some shorter form content and some fantasy file reels. Keep your eyes peeled for the fantasy file shorts that I've been putting on YouTube. It's a quick 1 minute, and you get a lot of information and potential waiver pickups. Guys that I don't have time to do a full video like this, they get the reel treatment or the YouTube short treatment. So you can keep your eyes peeled for that. If you stayed and watched to the end, I want to thank you for doing that. Remember to like and subscribe and all that crap. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next one.